here. I'm one of the campus ministry interns, and so I'll be sharing the lesson for tonight.
Yay!
Before we get started, I want to do a real quick checkup to see how you guys are doing. How's it been going with the reading plan? Do we have any hands? Do you got any stories about how it's been going that you have loved it so far, Gabe?
So I actually took a page out of Jordan's book, and I really just enjoy listening to it. I think connecting with just the stories, the stories, the real life stories, I guess. With just the narration of I read on the Bible app when I'm outside of the house. I run my Bible, so just listening to that narration really brings it to life. It's bringing me back a lot of just memories of just some of those stories the first time I heard it, and it's super refreshing. And just always like today I was listening to Mark 10, and I remember that was one of the first scriptures I think I had committed to memory, not out of challenging myself, but just meditating on it so much. So that was a good way to start my day today. So I'm enjoying that.
Awesome.
Sweet. Nice. Any other ones? Gianna?
I really liked that we're all, we all have our own quiet times, but then we're all also on the same page. And we're challenging each other, we're asking questions in our chats. And it just opens your perspective, I think my way, and sometimes when I read it, I'm also reading it my way. And so having those people challenge you, opening your perspective, and that's been really cool to see where they're coming from and, be in this journey together.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. I feel like someone does it really well. Shani. Shani puts scriptures all the time.
Yeah.
If there's someone that is a woman of her word, it's Shani. But that's great. And hopefully we keep doing it, guys. For those who don't know, we've got a reading plan we've been doing this semester. We've been trying to read a different chapter in a gospel every day. And so by the end of the semester, we'll have read all 4 gospels together. And so it's staying for me. I've been super inspired by it. I love it. Basically, every time I read it, it's kind of a lot of reading, but usually there's 1 or 2 verses that'll stand out to me so far. So don't get overwhelmed and feel like you need 10 insights from all of it. Just read it, take a breath, read it again, and if there's one thing that's standing out that makes absolutely no sense, just keep rereading that until you get it. And not ask people about it, and it'll make sense. But yeah, so I love that. We're going to jump right in here. And so the title of my lesson today is Come Back.
Come on, bro.
Come on, Sarah.
Come Back. We're going to be in Matthew 14.
Come back season. Baby, come back.
Come Back season. I like that. Come Back season. So, I've asked in the group chat a couple times, but who here has seen the movie Inception?
Come on.
Okay? Alright? Alright, so that's about half of us have seen it, and some of you I know don't even remember. So some of this stuff's gonna make no sense to you, but who remembers this meme? Okay?
I remember the meme.
This is from Inception. This is not the actual dialogue, but Cobb says to the subject, there's a dog behind you, and he says, what does it look like? And Cobb makes the same face as the dog. And so, I didn't think that was that funny, but just so you guys know what movie I'm talking about.
Okay.
That's gonna be the structure for our points, right? Just for fun, because I love movies and Maddox is here. So in Matthew 14, I'm gonna start in verse 22. And so who has read this passage before? Who's read this account? Who knows Jesus walking on water? Yeah, most of us? Okay, we're gonna read it again. And my encouragement to you guys is try to be ready to see what new thing the Spirit might point out to you about what's in this passage. Because honestly, there's so much. And it can be so easy to read something like this and think, I've read it before.
Yeah.
I know what he's going to say.
Right.
Step out your boat. Take a leap of faith. Blah, 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 blah. That's what I'm going to talk about. But it's important because that is a radical call. Okay? This is really rich stuff that's happening. Just let the words get to your heart. Amen?
Yep.
All right. So it says, immediately, Jesus made the disciples get into the boat and go on ahead of him to the other side. And while he dismissed the crowd, after he had dismissed them, he went up on a mountainside by himself to pray. Later that night, he was there alone, and the boat was already a considerable distance from land, buffeted by the waves because the wind was against it. Shortly before dawn, Jesus went out to them, walking on the lake. And when the disciples saw him walking on the lake, they were terrified. It's a ghost, they said, and cried out in fear. All right, so just want to think about this situation, okay? Clearly, imagine yourselves on a boat, right? And we're going to You just say Jesus is over there, okay? All right, they have been out there for hours. Hours. In John's account, they have been rowing for 3 or 4 hours, okay? So they're tired. Maybe they're hungry, okay? Because when you do a lot of exercise, you usually want to eat afterwards, all right? It's dark. It's late. It says right before dawn, Jesus was walking on the water, which you can't really see that well before dawn, right? It's not too bright out. So I think that's why they thought he was a ghost, because you're not really sure if it's him that's there at a distance coming toward you. But I can imagine, guys, this was like rough seas, waves pushing against them. They're rowing for hours. I mean, you're just tired. You're fatigued. That is not the most fun situation to be in. And I'm sure we've all been here in storms before, right?
Yeah.
Maybe you're going through a storm right now, where there's just this emotional turmoil and all this stuff. Or maybe it's not emotional, maybe it's your mind. You got so much on your head with school, with an assignment already, or with like stuff you have to do that you didn't get done, you got to get done at some point, and that's brewing in you. But it can be this like just wavering situation. And I'm sure the disciples were like, why?
Right.
Right? Like, why did Jesus ask us to go to the other side, knowing that this storm is going to be there? Okay? And you can feel that resistance, right? I mean, it says that the waves were against them and you're rowing, so it's kind of like, does this mean that we should turn back? Should we give up, right? Sometimes you can feel like situations are happening in life where it's like, I'm not getting the signs that I want from God, and so I should probably stop, right? Doesn't that mean that I should go back? If you're getting a little bit of a resistance. But I don't think that's what's happening here. This was like a warfare kind of thing. Like they're really going at it in the winds. And so the reason why I want to look at Inception is because there's this scene between Cobb and Saito, all right? They're some of the two main characters.
No.
And this isn't the scene exactly, this is just them talking. But at the end of the movie, they're talking amongst one another. And long story short, Saito's in a dream. And Cobb
No
is
way.
also in a dream. They're sharing a dream together. But Cobb knows that it's a lie, right? It's not reality. And Saito doesn't know that. And so Cobb goes into the dream to bring him back, to remind him of what reality truly is. Okay, he's there as a friend to help us. And I think you could even say that he was there to bring back a totem. Okay, so who knows what a totem is?
Oh, please talk about it. Tell us.
Ken.
It's the thing that they take in to tell if am I in a dream or not.
Gotcha. Yeah. So a totem is like what helps you figure out whether or not you're in a dream or whether or not you're in reality. It's very specific to you. Okay? Let's keep reading the passage. It says, "But Jesus immediately said to them, 'Take courage. It is I. Don't be afraid.'" That is so specific. Take courage. It is I. He didn't even say it's Jesus. He said, "It is I. Don't be afraid." Right? Like, what do you think is going through their head? They think this is a ghost, mind you. Okay? Who is that to be? I mean, maybe they recognize his voice. Very few people back then are like, "It's I. It is me." So they probably were like, "All right, this is probably Jesus." Maybe those going through. They're not sure. But he's talking to Peter, right? This is an interaction that's happening to Peter. Peter's on the boat at this time. We're going to dive into Peter too. But I think that what Jesus says to Peter here was his totem. And what I mean by that is, these are words that Peter, I bet you probably never forgot for the rest of his life. When he was out there in the middle of a storm, he sees a man on water, and he tells him to take courage, to not be afraid. That's what it was. And so what I want to call you guys to do, hopefully, is think about a passage in your life that can serve as a totem. That thing that helps you realize whether or not, like, what really is reality and not your insecurities and your thoughts, okay? And I'll go into that in a second. But I think the first thing to also think about before you get there is, what is it that you're afraid of, right? Because he wouldn't ask them to take courage. And he wouldn't ask them to not be afraid unless there was something to be afraid of. And in that situation, it was a storm. They might think they're about to die, you know? Like, it was very clear what it was for them to be afraid of. But I think for us, we have to really search within ourselves to figure out what are some things that can stop you from really taking courage and having confidence that Jesus is right there. That Jesus is going to take care of you, that Jesus is watching you, and that Jesus is not that far off from whatever situation or thing that it is that you're going through in that moment. I can feel fear all the time. I can feel those moments of emotion, that adrenaline drop, your stomach, right? That can happen. And really, it's just a false reality. Okay? Fear is almost like the dream, okay? Like, fear does not, those emotions that you have, they're not always based in truth. Some things, they're just things that can distract you, can stop you from looking at Jesus. So, think about what it is that you're afraid of that can stop you from really taking that leap of faith to go to Jesus. And I think what's interesting is Jesus says, he doesn't say, don't feel afraid. He says, don't be afraid. And I think there's a difference because I think in most of the situations that are crazy in our lives that we've taken, we probably felt a little bit of fear, right? And so you're trying to have this conversation with Jesus, like, what do you mean, don't be afraid? There's a storm. Like, why would I not be? Why would I not be feeling the angst of rowing and getting myself out of here? And he's not talking about not feeling the way. I think what he's saying is, don't be afraid. Don't become a person of fear. Don't be driven by fear. Don't let fear be the thing that takes you out. And if you need an example, I'm going to go to Nehemiah 2 real quick as a reference to help bring about a moment where someone felt afraid, but they still stepped out anyways. And what's great is it specifically says that in the passage. Like, I didn't make that up. In Nehemiah 2, anybody read the book of Nehemiah before? So all right, so y'all need a little bit of context. So Nehemiah just finds out that the land where his ancestors were buried has been burned to the ground. And he is mourning. He spent 3 days just fasting and praying. And he's pretty sad. Like, he's pretty beat up right now in his life. You could say he was going through a storm. And he was cupbearer to the king, which meant that he was kind of like the assistant. He'd be with the king. He would help him. And he had just finished praying to God, a very deep and vulnerable prayer, if you will, about asking God to hear his cry. And so one day, he just goes to work, like anyone. He's living his life. In verse 2, it says, I took wine and gave it to the king, and I had not been sad in his presence before. And so the king asked me, why does your face look so sad when you're not sick? This can be nothing but sadness of the heart. And I was very much afraid. Right, the CSB version says, I was overwhelmed with fear. But I said to the king, may the king live forever. Why should my face not look sad when the city where my ancestors are buried lies in ruins, and its gates have been destroyed by fire? And the king said to me, what is it that you want? Then I prayed to God, and I answered the king, saying, if it pleases the king, and if your servants have found favor in his sight, let him send me to the city in Judah where my ancestors are buried, so that I can rebuild it. Like, that's crazy. And it's funny, the king's response is, how long are you going to be gone? Right? To him, it was like, absolutely, you can go. I'm even going to send men to help protect you, to take care of you as you're on your journey. But I can imagine that moment. Never having being afraid, never having been sad in front of the king, who can do whatever he wants. And he's like, what's going on? And he's like, he was afraid, but he still tells him what was on his heart anyways. He still just steps out. And then the king's like, what? Like, be specific about what you desire. And first, he prays, and then he tells him. Like, which I think is a great model for us. But, I mean, that inspired me. Thinking about a moment where, man, fear could have taken over and stopped him. He could have just said, it's a bad day. I am feeling sick, actually. I may not look sick. But he decided to be honest with himself instead, guys. What are these things that can stop you from really taking courage and trusting when Jesus says, it is I. Don't be afraid. You guys with me?
Yeah.
It's cool because to reference the movie, right? Saito picks up Cobb's totem, and he says, "I know what this is. I've seen this before. It belonged to a man I once knew." And that's what I think is so great about our totems. The life passage for us is they're not our words. They belong to someone else. Okay? That's what gives them power. It's not our own self-talk that's kind of motivating us to be better and like, no, you can do it. It's like, no, it's God's talk to you, inspiring you and helping you really trust that. And it's funny because Saito also says, a man possessed of some radical notions. And I think that that's true because, man, we follow Jesus who's convinced of some crazy stuff, right? I mean, he claims to be the Son of God, and he says that he is the way, the truth, and the life. That no one comes to the Father except through him, and that anyone who comes to him will never thirst. Like, that's a radical notion, that a man claims to do that, and that he's the only one that can hold it up, and he can keep to it. That can even offend some people when he says that. But I just love that connection. That's the kind of man he is and was. And so I'll just share real quick. A life passage for me that has helped me a lot is from 2 Corinthians 4. And it says, "Therefore, we do not lose heart. Though outwardly we are wasting away, yet inwardly we are being renewed day by day. For our light and momentary troubles, or storms, are achieving for us an eternal glory that far outweighs those troubles, that far outweighs them all. And so, we fix our eyes on what is unseen. For what is seen is temporary, and what is unseen is eternal."
Amen.
Like that's what we gotta do is to focus your eyes on Jesus that is not physically visible, but he is eternal.
Right.
That helps keep me going.
Right.
When I'm like, oh man, I got so much on my heart. My second point is your countdown. Your countdown. So who knows what the countdown means in the movie or the song? Jay.
It lets them know when they're about to get kicked out of the dream.
Yes. It's a warning. It's a time that's about to let them know what is to come. They're about to go back to reality. Okay? Oh, there goes gravity. And so the countdown, right? That's you're listening to a song in the dream. You put on these headphones. You got this music, and there's some words that you're hearing in your head, right? And we're gonna go into the passage again to see. Think about what was probably going through Peter's head when this was happening, right? It says, "But Jesus immediately said to them, 'Take courage, it is I. Don't be afraid.' 'Lord, if it's you,' Peter replied, 'tell me to come to you on the water.' 'Come,' he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came toward Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, cried out, 'Lord, save me.' Immediately Jesus reached out his hand and caught him. 'You of little faith,' he said, 'why did you doubt?'" Like this situation is crazy. Like, I could forget that Jesus helped Peter defy the laws of buoyancy. Okay? This man walked on water as well. Like, if you were walking on water, do you think that you would start doubting that Jesus is really who he says he is, and that it really was Jesus? You'd want to say, of course not. I'm walking on water. I'm invincible. But look at what happened. Right? And so, hopefully I can, illustrate this better with this guy right here. This is a little bit taller than that for those who can't see. Oh yeah, everybody can see that, right? Okay, so he is walking. Walking on water, okay? I don't know if it was like this or whatever it was, but he got off the boat. He was walking, okay? And then what happened? What happened as he was walking? What was the next point? Before he started to sing, what happened? He saw the wind. he took his eyes off Jesus and saw something else, okay? This is like the spiritual equivalent to what we do. Is like, well, I'm walking on water towards Jesus. We're getting closer. I'm excited. Then you look at something else. You're like, whoa, give me a second. Like, there's something else that's kind of taking me away, right? Right? Like, what are some things that can distract us from keeping our eyes fixed on the author and perfecter of our faith? Raise your hand. Just answer real quick.
Our image, people images of us, perceptions of us.
Our image.
Yeah.
Absolutely. What else?
Cool.
School. For sure. Oh, yeah. That's the easiest one.
Like adversity and challenges.
Adversity and challenges. Absolutely.
Our family.
Our family.
Worldly pleasures.
Worldly pleasures. Now we're getting there. Yeah. Absolutely. Even for you personally. You don't have to say it, Malcolm, but I mean Calvin Bush. What were you going to say?
Malcolm, that's all I was gonna say.
Now we should take it away. My bad. He was right next to you, man. Any other ones? Lance.
Peer pressure, kind of.
Peer pressure. Oh yeah, peer pressure can take your eyes off Jesus. Absolutely.
Fear of my future.
The fear of your future. For sure.
Girls.
Girls. Yes. Women. And for women, men. All right, any last ones?
Downing myself.
Downing yourself. Absolutely. Guys, honestly, it's endless. There's so many things besides Jesus that can take our attention away from him. Even when you're doing really well and you're walking on water. It's so easy. Like you go from here to, he's beginning to sink, right? So that's kind of more of like a, you're upside down here. It's more like this. You're kind of on the waters, but barely, clearly, as you can see. You're down here. And what does Peter say to him? He's like, Lord, save me, right? Which, I mean, he was like, Jesus is probably right there. Like, as if Jesus couldn't save him earlier or something. But what does Jesus do? What does Jesus do? It says immediately he reaches down, he grabs him, he takes him up. And that's what I love about Jesus, right? In the midst of whatever it is that's going on in our lives, Jesus comes back, right? Okay? Jesus comes back. And he takes us by the hand and he pulls us up out of the water.
Yeah.
That's the king that we serve.
Right.
Come on, Zerg.
Y'all saw how ridiculous that was. Okay? And that's what can happen, honestly. When we just take your eyes off Jesus.
Yeah.
You start getting distracted by everything else that's taking you away from him. It's so easy. So easy. You know, I don't know what it is for you. Some things that can stop me are just harmful thoughts that can just creep in. Thinking that I can't do it, right? There's no way I can make it to Jesus in the middle of the storm, even though I'm walking. Like, I can't do it. Like, there's something that it's like, I'm not good enough. Or I'm not smart enough. Or I don't know enough of the Bible. I haven't studied enough. Or I can't do it. I don't know. I'm bored. Or I feel like there's too much else going on that Jesus, where am I even going to fit Jesus into my life?
Yeah.
And I think these are just lies, guys. This self-talk, right? That countdown.
Right.
Yeah, have you ever had somebody have to count something down before something intense was about to happen? Right? Whether you give yourself a little something like 5, 4, 3, or the doctor's about to.
Give you a shot.
And sometimes they give it to you sooner than because they're like, they want you to freak out last second. You got to pull through. These countdowns in our heads, they can do some stuff. And I think we just have to go back to Jesus.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really that simple. There isn't like crazy magic to it. Just recenter your gaze on him. When Peter was in the boat and said, Lord, if it is you, you could argue that wasn't even like faith. You could argue that he was just like, I'm going to like consider the possibility that that's Jesus. I'm just going to consider it. So I'm like, Lord, if it is you, tell me to come out to you, right?
Right.
Because he could have said, Lord, I know it's you. I want to be out there with, like, he was like, if. And it's funny because Jesus didn't go to him, right? He said, take courage, it is I. He didn't jog over, say, guys, don't worry, stop the storm. Like, he was like, hold on, come to me. And that little extra thing, whatever it is, like, it's just getting out of the boat. It's just the if. It just even consider possibility that Jesus is who he says he is.
Right.
That Jesus is going to take care of you in the middle of all that junk. And that you will be okay. That, sometimes even if that's the position you're in, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's honestly sometimes what it takes to just get right out. And I find it interesting that Jesus really is looking for faith in this
Yeah.
situation.
Yeah.
You know, it reminds me of the faith of the centurion, right? You talk about little faith, right? Jesus says to him, "You of little faith." I don't think he was talking about like quantity so much as about the quality of his faith, right? How deep was it? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Right? An example of someone who had very quality faith, I would say, was a centurion, right? He's tattooed on Gabe's arm. And it's a man who comes to Jesus and he says, please heal my servant, right? Like, he's like, my servant's sick. I tell guys, and Jesus is like, what do you want me to do? Like, do you want me to come and do it? And he's like, no, you stay. Like, you just say the word and you can heal him, right? That's quality faith.
Right.
He was like, you don't even have to move. There was no coming. It's like, I just trust. I just know it's you, Lord. I know you can do it.
Right.
I think that's what Jesus speaks to when he was like, you have little faith. In those moments, you want to start thinking about what is going to help strengthen your faith to where it's going to help you last. Not just about these inflated ups and downs of like, oh, I have high faith in this moment, and the next week you're down and up and down. But what is going to help you be steady to continue taking those steps on the water to get closer to Jesus? Does that make sense?
Good steps, Xergio.
It's all about your stamina. And faith isn't primarily about action. It's about expressing trust in the unseen. We can overcomplicate it, huh?
So talk about it.
We can overcomplicate it, right? You guys know the scene in the Notebook where he was like, what do you want? It's not that simple. What do you want, right? You can overcomplicate what it is that's going to get us there, or like your schedule or your time. You got something like, it's just like, oh, I got these things on my head. Don't overcomplicate it, guys. Real simple. Have faith.
Yeah.
Trust that Jesus is who he says he is, and he's going to help you in those moments.
Good stuff.
All right, my last point. Your kick. Your kick. Oh, and to speak to the point right before, right? In terms of the movie Inception, the connection I found here, this one's a little loose. Saito says to him, like, why are you here? And Cog is like, I've come back for you. To remind you of something. Something you once knew. That this world is not real. Right, something you chose to forget, like that. There's these reminders that we're going to keep getting, this totem that happens. That's what hopefully I'm trying to do, is remind you to go back to Jesus and know that those insecurities and thoughts are just not real, and it's just whatever I was doing earlier. Okay. Your kick, Matthew 14, verse 32. And when they climbed into the boat, the wind died down. Then those who were in the boat worshipped him, saying, truly, you are the Son of God. It's like, why did you doubt? Simple, it was right there. Wind died down, they're just on a boat with Jesus at this point, and the first thing they start doing is just worshiping him.
Wow.
Absolutely on their knees, down, worshiping. And honestly, I think the person that was worshiping the loudest and the strongest and the most was Peter.
Yeah.
I think he was just like, wow, that just happened to me. Like, I was just thinking, and and now I'm on the boat. Like, oh, that's right, man. I needed that reminder. Jesus, truly, you are the Son of God. Only someone with great faith of quality, can say that confidently to Jesus, whether it be in prayer or in your heart. say that he is the Son of God, a man possessed of radical notions. And I have an example here for us that I want to do. I'm going to need a volunteer, so prepare yourselves. So before I get there, the last part of the conversation between Saito and Cobb, right before they finally wake up, is Saito says to him, "Oh, you've come back to tell me to honor our arrangement." And Cobb says to him, "Yes, to take a leap of faith." Okay, and that's exactly what we're going to do here. And so I need a volunteer. All right, I'm going to do Jonathan. All right.
Let's go, Jonathan.
Okay. All right, Jonathan, I think you'll fit here. You just stand up on the table here. All right. I need you to face that way. And I need you to close your eyes. Are your eyes closed? All right. So, can someone stronger catch me? Thank you. I guess Jesus is strong enough. So, Jonathan, do you trust me?
Yep.
Are you ready to take a leap of faith?
I guess so.
You guess so?
Yep.
All right. Fall when you're ready. Great job! I'm so glad that my friend Jonathan trusts me. That's great. And I know that Jonathan did it because I think he trusts me. He did it pretty easily. He didn't hesitate. And I'm so glad that Jesus is not alone, but that he's got the Holy Spirit. And he's got God the Father there to help him in certain moments to catch us, okay? So if you have doubt that Jesus ain't enough, remember that Jesus also got the Spirit and he's got God, okay? That can take you. But, Jonathan, was that easy or was that difficult?
A little difficult.
It was a little difficult? But you did it? Do you regret it? Nope, you don't. It was great. See, guys, real simple. Leap of faith. You just gotta trust. He had no idea. I'm not the biggest guy, and he's a much taller man, and he still chose to trust me in that situation. Guys, in James 2, James talks about what faith produces, okay? True faith. When faith is really there, James asks in verse 14, "What good is it, my brothers and sisters, if someone claims to have faith but has no deeds? Can such faith save them?" Verse 17, he says, "Faith by itself, if it is not accompanied by action, is dead." Verse 18, "I will show you my faith by my deeds. You believe that there is one God. Good. Even the demons believe that and shudder." Verse 24, "A person is considered righteous by what they do and not by faith alone." As if you aren't living a life where your actions are a direct product of your faith, where what you do is grounded in what you say you believe, then I implore you to recalibrate the purity of your faith, to test it. Think about the kind of life that you live. Think about the faith that you claim to have. And if you are living a life where your actions, what you do, is a direct product of what you believe, measure that well. I encourage you to look at that. And I encourage you even more to live a life with the clear understanding and revelation that Jesus truly is the Son of God. When Jesus was speaking with Peter later on, he was talking with them and he says, "What do the people say about me?" And he said, "Oh, they think you're Elijah, they think you're John the Baptist, reincarnated, whatever." He said, what do you say? Who do you say I am?" And Peter says, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God."
Yeah.
And Jesus says, "Blessed are you, for it was not revealed to you by flesh and blood." It was not a person that told you that, but it was revealed to you by my Father. It's a revelation that comes, guys, this understanding, this depth where your faith is grounded in an understanding of reality, of truth, the deepest truth that there is. That Jesus is the Son of God, guys. If you believe that with all your heart, there is nothing that's going to stop you from taking the next leap of faith.
Right.
Nothing. There's no insecurity, there's no anxiety, there's no thought, there's no school, there's nothing that's going to get in the way. There's nothing greater than Jesus and knowing who he really is. It's amazing to think about the kind of man Peter was. And guess what? Peter messed up. I mean, it wasn't perfect, right? At the cross, Peter, he messed up. He decided not to be faithful in that moment, and he denied Jesus 3 times. And he needed a little totem. He needed a little reminder. He needed a little kick to get back, which he took it well, thank God. But if you're thinking about your life and your walk with God, and you're like, oh, I've tried and I've gone, but I've just failed and I've messed up and I've done certain things wrong, and like I know I should be doing this more, and I know I could be doing that, but if you got all of that going on, it's like, amen, it happens. Move forward.
Yeah.
Keep going.
Right.
Don't stop in those tracks, guys.
Right.
It's never a perfect thing. We all need a little kick sometimes.
Let's go, Xergio.
Which I didn't explain that. The kick in the movie is basically, it's the feeling of falling, it's the jolt that wakes you up. It's the thing that actually brings you to reality. Like that kick brings you back to Jesus, hopefully. And so as I close, what I wanted to say is that Jesus asks us to take risks in these moments of faith. That it is risky, that it can feel a little unsure about what's going to happen. But honestly, it's one of the exciting parts about living life with Jesus, because I know that whatever risk I take, he's got my back.
Right.
Nelson Mandela said, there is no passion to be found playing small, or to live a life that is less than the one that you're capable of living. And anything that matters in our lives, even for you guys, it takes risks. Anything that matters takes risks. And I hope that you're not okay with just living a life that is being played small, but that you can really live life to the full with Jesus.
Right.
And the only way to do that is with risk, with faith. My encouragement is to leave room for God to act.
Yeah.
Let there be space where there's not much clarity. I mean, Jesus, when Peter was like, Lord, if it is you, tell me to come out to you, Jesus just said, come. He wasn't like, don't worry, there's going to be a sand dune that you can step on. I'm going to put like a piece of glass that you can walk. Like, he didn't really give him too many details or like how. He just gave him direction. He was just like, come.
Yeah.
Just one simple word, very easy command, come, right? Like, leave some room for God and for Jesus to do their work.
Right.
To be as mysterious as they are in your life. Because if you're trying to control each aspect of your walk with God and how it goes, and the next part, and how spiritual you should be feeling, and the insight that you should have at this point, and X, Y, Z, like, there's no faith. There's no room for God to work in that. There's going to be questions. There's going to be things that don't make sense when you're stepping out and walking on water. But it can be exciting if you let it. And so, if this is like your first or second time here, welcome. Again, I'm Xergio. Love you guys. And if you're still in this place of like, I'm trying to get out the boat, or I just took out one step, great job, keep going. Maybe you just started studying the Bible, or you're just getting into the Word, or you're just really starting to revamp your walk with God. Keep doing that. Keep taking these steps of faith. And it can be as simple as just being diligent in reading the Word and going back to Jesus, fixing your eyes on Him, and just being reminded of who He is throughout your day, right? Living life with Jesus. And if you've been part of Alpha Omega for a while, my question is like, where is Jesus asking you to step out? Right? Where is that leap of faith in your life that He's asking you to take? What is the thing that you're like, I've been pretty unsure about this, or maybe this week, or whatever the thought is, or like, what are some areas that like you can go and be faithful in your actions, not making any sense, pure, I'm trusting Jesus, I'm looking to Him in what I'm doing. And it can be as simple as, again, just reuniting with the body of Christ and coming here and being intentional about caring enough to be a supporting ligament to the body of Christ, if you know what I mean. Maybe it's getting into a Bible study and helping somebody else get closer to God and do that. I was in 2 Bible studies today, guys, and they were so much fun. It was so great reading the scriptures with somebody and helping them see Jesus clearer. You can just see the light in their eyes when they're like, oh, that's cool. That's awesome. It's a fun time.
Yeah.
Whatever it is, guys, I'm sure that there's at least one thing in your mind where you're like, this is somewhere where I need some faith. You know, I need to take a little step here. And it's always going to be scary, but it doesn't mean that you have to be afraid. It doesn't mean you can be scared. You can push past that. Cobb tells Sido, he says, come back so we can be young men together again. Come back with me. Come back. Just a reminder, guys, come to Jesus. Go return to him. Let's go back together. And if you need another totem, then just hear this one out. It's one of my favorites. Listen. The Spirit empowers us with these words. Let us, Alpha Omega, fix our eyes on Jesus, the author and perfecter of our faith, who, for the joy set before him, endured the cross, scorning its shame, and sat down at the right hand of the throne of God. Consider him who endured such opposition from sinful men, so that you will not grow weary and lose heart. Amen.